Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Obviously, this one is quite a bit different, and I'm honestly a bit scared to put this video out there, as it seems there's not many people on my side of the political aisle that agree with me here, but this is something that I personally feel very strongly about. I don't know how much attention this video will receive, but I'm just hoping you hear me out with charitability and an open mind.
Absolutely horrible for audio quality.
Dude, this is like unimaginable wealth, dude. How the fuck do people make this much money? $2.9 million near Las Vegas? Dude, oh my fucking lord, dude. You can buy a fucking castle in Las Vegas.
Wall of audio.
So, taking a clip of Hasan out of context is not exactly the most charitable thing I could do to start this video, but my issue isn't really that he bought a $3 million home in West Hollywood. While there are certainly a few things that could be criticized about where he bought it, how much it cost, etc., that's not my point with this video. In regards to the house, I do find it ironic that a lot of the rhetoric that Hasan has employed for as long as I've known of him has been geared towards criticizing the wealthy, or displaying shock at the sheer exuberance of what wealthy people do. Now, I'm not the most avid viewer, so I'm sure that similar to a creator like Vosh, while he may signal anti-wealth in his rhetoric, his points of contention largely lie with systemic issues. Eat the rich in the metaphorical, not the literal. However, something that really ruffles me the wrong way is how disconnected it feels like a lot of people are with the working class here, as largely the response has been, what, so socialism is when no house? Or, it's actually not even a very expensive house for that area, as if it's not still a $3 million almost mansion in West Hollywood. I feel like this is very disingenuous. I mean, a Lamborghini is just a car, but obviously there's a big difference between a Toyota Camry and a Lambo. Ultimately, again, my major point of contention isn't really that he bought something very expensive, but rather the arguments used to defend his actions, the absolute berration faced by those with critiques, and what people think socialists are morally or ethically responsible to do, or how to behave within society as a socialist. So, a big mistake I made was thinking I was capable of having some semblance of rational discourse on Twitter, the place where nuance goes to die. While I did end up saying some very vitriolic things, if you scroll through my tweets, none of which I deleted for transparency's sake, you'll see a swift and steady decline as my frustration grew. In response to Vosh's admittedly funny tweet, "Just found out Hasan Piker is rich, feeling sick to my stomach right now," I saw someone with a bit of a reductionary and naive but good-hearted tweet about how Hasan could have saved many lives with $3 million, but instead bought a mansion. It should be rather self-evident as to why it's a naive tweet, but you can understand the point the kid is trying to make if given just a bit of charitability. Then, I saw this kid get absolutely ratioed by someone saying they could feed a lot of people with their rent money. Why don't they live in a cardboard box? Which I found distasteful. Not just the tweet, but the hundreds of likes it quickly accumulated. I thought that the very disingenuous read of the former's tweet was really disappointing to see from Vosh's community, so I voiced as much. And this is where the Charlie Foxtrot started. Every point of critique would be responded with absolutely absurd strawmen, ad homs, and equivocation. I had so many people talking down to me about how I didn't know what socialism was, making fun of mental health issues by linking to online therapy services, and plainly insulting me. My lack of formal education definitely made me an easier target. For example, when I say money is capital, while in my mind this seems obvious, more well-read folks were quick to think me idiotic to believe so. Obviously, cash is not the only form of capital, but I still have yet to understand how money is not capital, and my lack of understanding painted a picture of someone unworthy of listening to. At least that's how I was made to feel and how the detractors behaved. If anyone watching is interested to see just how off the rails things went, feel free to look at my Twitter using the same handle I am here. Ultimately, these interactions left me with a lot of thoughts, some of which I will lay out in the next couple of segments. An idea I have an issue with ties back to a very similar controversy surrounding a YouTube channel called Philosophy Tube's creator about 7 or 8 months ago. A very similar argument had ensued then as has now. There's a socialist with a considerable amount of wealth advocating for a lot of ideas online, but real-world action doesn't differentiate their behavior much from a by-the-numbers liberal capitalist or SOCDEM. The argument I hear a lot about this is that we shouldn't critique the individual but the system. However, this doesn't seem to acknowledge what creates, upholds, and perpetuates these systems. It is the actions of individuals that allow for the systems that we wish to be changed to remain as they are. What industries and politicians would hold power if not for the individuals that collectively feed into them? In some ways, it's not as simple as that, but in others, it really is. We recognize the power in voting. Why do we not apply the same mindset to other areas in which the collective micro influences the macro? If we continue to buy off of Amazon, how do we expect that Amazon's powers to be diminished? We give all of our bargaining power away when we employ the "if I don't, someone else will" mindset, as well as allowing all sorts of poor behavior to be justified by the same reasoning. We, as consumers within capitalism, do hold some power. There are surely examples in which our power is completely futile. However, there are a plethora in which we do hold power. The mindset of no ethical consumption under capitalism is equally toxic. As in any given set of circumstances, you can absolutely make ethical choices based on your individual moral framework. In the same breath as someone saying there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, they will say that someone like Hasan has made his money without exploiting workers, which is just patently false if you look even slightly under the surface. Hasan is utilizing servers that are manned with worker exploitation. He collects donations given to him by people whose surplus labor value has been exploited. He has signed a multi-million-dollar contract with an Amazon-owned company, which is able to deliver such a large amount on a contract due in part to the exploitation of their workers. Would it be unethical for Hasan to have even taken the contract? What are socialists to do in a world dominated by capitalism? Wait for revolution? Voting is obviously hugely important because a collective of ideologically aligned individuals are able to try and instill politicians with their interests in mind. But without the American public believing there is any value in socialism, how are we expect them to vote for socialist-leaning candidates? We hold next to no power, with most Americans conditioned to have a guttural reaction at the mere mention of socialism. So how do we change their minds? We can't expect them to get on board with our beliefs and propose new systems if they have no trust in us and see no value in our ideals. We can't force them into things which they are diametrically opposed to. We are not authoritarians. We believe democracy is so much better, we wish to see it within our workplace. So what are socialists meant to do in the face of the insurmountable behemoth of the capitalist American machine? My understanding of socialism and my draw to it relies heavily on the concept of workers owning the business in which they labor. This alone could address many issues we as a society and specifically as progressives are fighting for. We need not wait for some big moment. There are actions that we can take now. We need more worker co-ops. Out of over 30 million small businesses in America, we have only around 400 worker co-ops. Is this because worker co-ops are ineffective models within capitalism? I don't believe so, and I think that the data should back me up on that. So why is it we have so few? It should seem obvious. Worker co-ops find it quite difficult to secure loans by utilizing banks, and capitalists would have no interest in helping start a business which they cannot exploit the surplus labor value and extract the lion's share of profits. Expecting working class people living paycheck to paycheck to not only gather enough capital to start a business, but to take time away from their job to take a risky financial endeavor is asking quite a lot. So, what to do? Here's a hypothetical. Let's say there's an elderly person trying to move a large piece of furniture out of their house. They're struggling, as generally elderly folk aren't known for their strength, and walking past is a well-muscled power lifter. They not only have the ability to do so, but their means to do so are much more substantial than the elderly person, that while yes, injury is still a possibility for the powerlifter, it is much more unlikely for them than for the elderly person. The time it would take would be time the powerlifter will never get back, and the energy extolled would be unnecessary physical exertion. While the powerlifter is not obligated to help, and this would be at some level an inconvenience for them, shouldn't they? We can up the stakes for more hypotheticals like this pretty easily, and as the relative power of the 2 points of polarity grow in the hypotheticals, the more I find grows the ethical responsibility of the powerful unit to act to best support the weaker unit. To draw the comparison back to Hasan, as someone who spends a lot of his time advocating for uplifting the working class and has made a considerable amount of money doing so, should he not seek to try and find ways to financially bolster other socialists, or consume a bit more responsibly in ways that access to a lot of money and resources makes substantially easier? We as socialists should absolutely be striving to at least make worker co-ops a reality for the American public now. However, I do not hold the same level of moral culpability to working poor socialists as I do with wealthy socialists. They have the means, with substantially less of a risk factor to themselves, to uplift other socialists economically by trying to invest into businesses that would be worker-owned. And with more economically secure socialists would come more socialists who would have the ability to secure political power, open more worker co-ops, and overall have a better quality of life. We have, in my eyes, the moral responsibility to do better than our capitalist counterparts in the face of a system that incentivizes every person to fight to secure themselves a better life. When we are dead and forgotten, and everyone we've ever known is dead and forgotten, what matters is the frameworks that we leave behind. Sure, we shouldn't asceticize ourselves, as we do only have this one life and should do our best to enjoy it, but what is the point in believing something as grandly potential as socialism if we leave this world with no significant real-world impact in what our beliefs are? We can consume more ethically, build businesses, make more people in the real world see that socialists aren't authoritarian, hypocritical, and lazy, but that we are democratic, ethical, and hardworking. We want everyone to live lives with dignity and safety, and it starts small, investing into communities that can be uplifted by the physical manifestation of our beliefs. We don't believe in the toxic notion of rugged individualism when it comes to other millionaires, so why do we give a free pass to wealthy socialists? As if the wealth they accumulated was solely because of the great exceptionalism of that person and their individual abilities. Just advocating for our ideas online only appeals to an extremely niche portion of the population. If we want to see real progress and change the minds of those who would normally be opposed to us, we need to show in real life why our ideas are not only good, but better for everyone, except for the greediest and most selfish of us. Thanks for tuning in to another video. I hope y'all enjoyed. I don't know when I'm gonna post again, so no false promises this time. While I enjoy it, I feel there's oftentimes nothing for me to say that hasn't been said already by smarter people. But the feeling of being on an ideological island with this topic got me to crawl out of the woodwork. Laying out my thoughts here made me feel a bit less crazy about it. Anyways, thanks again for tuning in. As always, I hope you have a great rest of your day, shoot for the stars, and be the best you can be today. Bye.
The tree lines all match all the way through. We have a toilet, and then we're going upstairs. Let's go.
Consumption on this level is disgusting, and a fixation with even the slimmest possible chance of living like this is what leads to millions of Bezos stands and capitalism defenders. Even as the planet boils, we are sick.